the Executive Director of the Plus Group. We want to thank you for taking the time to join us today for the Plus Group webinar series. Today's topic is 13 steps to dramatically increase your DI sales in 2013, and will be presented to you by Chris Carlson, the DI coach. Please note that all lines will be muted during this webinar. If you would like to ask a question, you can do so anytime during the webinar if you go to your question pane on the control panel and type it in. We will answer the questions at the end of the webinar. We'll try to get to as many as we can, depending on how many we have. Otherwise, we will get back to you with any questions. Also note that we are recording this webinar, and it will be sent to you along with the presentation in a follow-up email. You will also be able to view it at our website at www.plusgroup.us.com. Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn this over to Chris.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and thanks, everybody, for jumping on our webinar today. I know that everybody is busy, so we appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day to join us. And again, what we're going to talk about is just some simple steps to help you write more DI in 2013. And here's what I know about what I'm going to talk about today, is the ideas that I'm going to share with you are basically going to fall into one of four categories. Category number one is you've already seen the idea, you've already seen the idea and you already use it. So you know it and you're using it. The second category is you know the idea that I'm talking about, but it's just not something that fits your style. The third category is that I'm going to say something that may be something new to you, and you're going to decide to go ahead and use it. Fourth category is it's something new, but for whatever reason, it doesn't fit your style. No matter what category that it fits into, it's okay. Every single idea is not going to resonate with every single person on the webinar. Some things, really make a lot of sense to you, and for some of you, it's just not your style. But I will promise you this. I think it was Zig Ziglar who once said, is what you think about comes about. So if you're here today thinking, I'm looking for one or two ideas that I can incorporate into my practice in 2013 to help me write more disability insurance, to help me write more income protection products, I promise you those ideas are going to be there. And maybe it's going to be a modification of idea that you've already seen, or maybe something you use and it works so well that you stop using it. But we're just going to share some ideas that we know that work, and hopefully you can incorporate it right away into your particular practice. So let's get started. The first thing you can do to write more disability insurance in 2013 is to take care of your best client, you. I've never met a producer, agent, planner, broker who wrote a significant amount of disability insurance who did not own it on himself or herself. It's critical that you own it on yourself, because what happens is when you take care of your best client, is what you do is you now understand the coverage, you understand the thought process that people go through to make the decision to own it, you understand the process to go through an underwriting, you understand what it's like to write that check every year or having it taken out of your account every month. It really makes you that much better to talk to your prospects and clients. It's the start of a new year. Actually, it's kind of scary, and we're already 1 month gone, almost 1 month gone into a new year. But this is a time to kind of take a look at, our personal portfolios. Let's make sure that our personal disability insurance plan has been updated. As an example, maybe you need to take a look at, do you need more coverage? Did you have just a really kick-butt year in 2012, and you made significantly more money, and you need to increase your coverage, your monthly benefit? Maybe it's time to take a look at buying business overhead expense insurance on yourself. Maybe you have a key person in your organization that it would make sense to protect and provide funds in the event that they were out, and the impact that it might have if they were to become hurt or sick. What impact would it have on your practice? Maybe it makes sense to take a look at some of the newer policies/benefits on the marketplace, like the retirement benefits or the catastrophic benefits. But again, if you want to write more, make sure you're taking care of your most important client, you. Once you've got yourself taken care of, then what we have to do is we have to make sure that we're taking care of our top clients. Now, I picked the number 20, and I'm going to drill down a little bit further. Is we need to make sure that we're protecting our top 20 clients that need to protect their income. I'm aware that for many of you, your top clients are at or near retirement. And so disability insurance may not be a focal point. It could be that you need to focus on long-term care. But if you take a look at the top 20 clients who need to protect their income, maybe who need to protect their business, is why don't we start taking a look at what you've talked to them about and what the gap happens to be. So here's a simple chart. If you were just to list those top 20 clients on the left-hand side, and you make a check or an X, whatever symbol you want to use, to know if they do have disability insurance coverage, do they have business overhead expense coverage, do they need or have buy-sell coverage, is there a need for key person? I promise you, for the majority of people on this call, if you do this one exercise, in all probability, is you're going to have the opportunity to talk to anywhere from 5 to 12 people about their need for some product here. And you'll probably write about 75% of those people you talk to because they're your best clients. So after you take care of yourself, the second thing I want you to do is to make sure that you're taking care of your top clients. The third step I want you to be thinking about is we need to make sure that you have a good pipeline versus a pipe dream. I don't know about your practice, but in my practice, there's not a line of people out the door waiting to give me money for my products and services. I have to do a phenomenal job of marketing and prospecting to create a pipeline that gives me enough people to talk to make sure that I can hit the goals that I want to do. So, my question to you is what are you doing in 2013 to fill your pipeline and make sure it's a pipeline versus a pipe dream? Are you doing some type of marketing campaign, be it traditional or maybe something with social media? Are you doing seminars or something like seminars or lunch and learns? Are you going to networking events? Do you belong to associations that you're out there, you're pressing the flesh, you're exchanging business cards, you're asking people for an opportunity to sit down for a cup of coffee and just engage them and see what they need in terms of, do they need a financial planner? Do they need an insurance planner? Do they need somebody to help them with a specific product or need in this financial services world? Are you one of the rare people out there who actually cold calls? Or possibly maybe what you need to do to fill that pipeline is to do a better job of getting referrals and introductions. And that's what I want to talk about as my next step. Is I really do believe that the key to success for the vast majority of the people in the financial services industry is to be masterful at introductions. Most people don't have the resources, the skills, or the stick-to-itiveness to do any type of broad marketing plan. So what we really need to do is to make sure that we do a great job with centers of influence, we do a great job with our current clients, that they're introducing us to potential clients. I'm going to make a distinction here between a referral and an introduction. And I do know that many times these terms are used interchangeably, but here's the distinction that I want to make. To me, a referral sounds something like this. Hey, Chris, just give John a call and use my name. The problem is when I call John, that's a cold call. John's not expecting my call. As opposed to if my center of influence says, I tell you what, Chris, what I want to do is I want the three of us to get together over breakfast and I'll introduce you that way. Or possibly he might introduce me via email. But the real key here is that John, in this particular case, needs to be expecting my call, if that's the situation, and my center of influence has given John some information about me and why he thinks it would make sense for us to get together and maybe do business together. So that's just the distinction I want to make. But here are 7 steps that are critical if you want to be better at getting introductions. The first thing is you have to set a goal. I do a lot of work with agents across the country, and one of my questions always is, what is your weekly goal for the number of introductions you want to receive? And almost invariably, no hands go up because nobody has a crystal clear goal of how many introductions they want to receive each and every week. Now, I can't tell you what that goal should be, but I would tell you that you need one, whether it's 1 a week or if it's 5 a week, depending on what your practice is all about. Too often, producers come, it's a Friday about 4 o'clock, and they look up and they say, oh my goodness, I haven't asked anybody for an introduction. So make sure you're setting a goal, and it's just as important as the other goals. It's as important as your appointment goals, as your revenue goals. But if you start to set a goal for introductions, you're more likely to get where you want to go. The second thing you need to do is be crystal clear on your target market. There's nothing worse than to get a referral introduction from somebody, and it's somebody who you really don't like working with, and or you just can't do the right job for them. As an example is if you spend all of your time working with business owners, and for whatever reason you really don't like working with physicians, it's too bad that you get a referral to a physician because it's not who you really like to work with. So you need to be crystal clear on who your target market is, so when you're having conversations with your centers of influence, you can tell them exactly what you're looking for. And I'm going to double click on that here in just a second. The next thing you need to do, and here's my challenge, here's going to be one of your homework assignments from this particular webinar, is you need to identify your centers of influence. And what I'd like for you to do at some point in the next 24 hours, get out a sheet of paper and put a line right down the middle. And it's really going to have 2 categories. One category is going to be current centers of influence. Those are the COIs that are currently giving you a steady stream of introductions. Now, a steady stream doesn't mean every day, but on a consistent basis, they're introducing you to people that you have appointments with that turn into clients. My experience is that most advisors have somewhere between 3 and 10 people who give them a steady stream of referrals. The other column is going to be what I call developing COIs, or COIs to develop. And those are the people that you have, that you believe are influential, but the depth of your relationship has not developed to the point where they're giving you those introductions. And my experience working with advisors is most of you are going to be able to list somewhere between 25 and 50 people who, yes, they have influence in their particular area, but you really haven't developed that relationship. Boy, now you have people that you can be focused on, to be calling on, to see if you can establish a relationship. I wish I could tell you that all 25 or all 50 are going to turn into great centers of influence. They're not, but at least you know someplace where you can start to start moving the ball down the field. The next thing that you need to do is what I call weekly planning. And look, so often, people say to me, "Oh, Chris, this is already too much work. It's just going to take me too much time. I'm already busy." Here's what I want you to do. If by chance that somewhere as you're viewing this webinar, your calendar is handy, just glance over that, or maybe it's in your mind, and think about who you're going to see next week, as an example, that is influential and that you could ask for an introduction from. And what you start doing is, as you plan out your week, start making a list of the people that you're already going to see. You're already scheduled to see from an appointment. You're already scheduled to talk to. Maybe you're going to see them at an association meeting, and just jot down their name and says, you know what, when I see Tracy at the association meeting, I'm going to make sure that I ask her for somebody, or for her to introduce me to somebody. And I'm going to even drill down even further on that. So my point is, I don't want you to go through a whole lot of extra work, because your chances are you're already seeing enough of the right people. Now, before I see Tracy next week at the association meeting, I'm going to do some research. And I need to go to some sources where I can find out who Tracy might know. Because here's the biggest challenge we have when we ask for introductions, is here's what we ask Tracy. Hey, Tracy, who do you know that you could refer me to? Number one answer is, I don't know, Chris, but when I think of somebody, I'll let you know. And unfortunately, rarely do they. Not because Tracy's a mean person, and not because she doesn't want to help me. She just gets busy and forgets. So what I need to do is I need to make it easier for her. So I'm probably going to go on LinkedIn and find out who she's linked to that maybe would be a great client for me. maybe I do some research on Tracy in Google and find out some more information that would help me understand who she is, who she's connected to. Maybe Tracy sits on boards in the community where I can look at that board's website and find out who her fellow board members are, and then maybe I can get Tracy to introduce me to those people. So, but when I finally visit with Tracy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 3x5 card, and I'm going to jot down anywhere between 2 and 4 names. And I'm going to ask a very simple question, and it's going to sound something like this. Tracy, knowing what you know about me and knowing what you know about the people on this card, who would it make sense for you to introduce me to? What will happen, people, is you will now have a conversation regarding those people. But what it prevents Tracy from giving the number one answer typically is, I don't know if anybody, Chris, but when I think of somebody, I'll let you know. What we're really doing is we're opening up Tracy's data bank. And now what she's able to do is she can say, well, it would be great to talk to John, or Dave doesn't make sense because he's going through some personal problems, his mind wouldn't be focused. And then what I can do is get Tracy to introduce me. What's really amazing is you can give them that 3x5 card if it becomes their homework. And for some reason, the vast majority of people will not throw it away until they've accomplished their mission. Now, certainly this works with people you have great relationships with, which is why it's so critical to know who your core centers of influence are and which ones you need to develop. And the final thing you need to do at becoming masterful at introductions is make sure you track this. As my experience tells me is that you might start 2013 thinking, boy, this certain CPA is just going to be a great center of influence. And then you start to track the number of introductions you get from him or her, and then the quality, and then what the results are. You may be surprised that, you know what, they just don't have the influence. None of them turned into clients, but there might be somebody else out there that, you know, was a center of influence that was like money in the bank. Every time they introduce you to somebody, that particular individual turned into a client. So if you want to become masterful in introductions, you keep laser beam focused on those 7 things, and I promise you, you know, it'll be fantastic in terms of the number of people that you're going to get in front of on a favorable basis. The next step in terms of writing more disability insurance in 2013 is that you have to make the topic and the conversation of disability insurance and income protection part of every annual review. Let's face it, if you're doing an annual review, they're already a client, and chances are you're already a trusted advisor. But the problem, you know, typically turns into is we run out of time, or we really don't know what to say to bring up disability insurance or business overhead expense or whatever the particular product was. So what I would suggest that you do, if you're having trouble with that first step, maybe what you can do is a week ahead of the meeting is just, I'll pick on Tracy again, send Tracy an email that says, Tracy, I'm looking forward to our review meeting next week. Hey, take a look at this article because this is something we need to discuss. Or what I can do is I could take a flyer from one of the carriers that you do business with. I know some producers that what they do is they will get a quote for Tracy, $1,000 a month, 90-day wait, age 65 benefit period, and email that to Tracy because now Tracy's starting to think about it. At the end of the day, it's really a trick for the producer to make sure that when he or she gets there, that they have the conversation with Tracy about the need for income protection. And you can just, you know, that what you can put in your email is, you know, Tracy, one thing we haven't talked about is the need to protect your income. Or, Tracy, the one thing we need to talk about is the need to protect your income. But again, you're already going to be there. You already have a relationship. And if you haven't talked to them about the need to protect their income, what a great time to do it. Make sure that income protection is part of every discovery meeting. So when you're meeting with a prospect for the first time, when you're doing that initial meeting, or what I call the fit meeting, to see if it's a good fit, if it makes sense to continue the relationship, make sure that somewhere in that initial meeting you're talking about income protection. Some of you have read or have seen Nick Murray, and Nick Murray is a tremendous consultant to the financial planning industry, and he has a question in one of his books that sounds like this. Dave, do you know exactly what would happen to your family financially if you became disabled and could no longer work? Now imagine if you were to ask a question like that, put it in your own words, every time you met with somebody for the very first time. Now what's starting to happen is you're getting an idea of where this person stands in terms of how important it is to protect their income. I'm not here to tell you by asking that question is that changes the world, but what it does, it eliminates the debate whether they will or won't become disabled, but it gets them thinking, my goodness, what would happen if I were to become hurt or sick and couldn't go to work? And it changes the whole structure of your future conversations when you talk about this particular need early in your relationship as opposed to later in the relationship. Another step to write more disability insurance is to make sure that you recommend it as part of every plan that you present in 2013. Be it a financial plan, be it an insurance plan, whatever it happens to be, make sure that you're making it part of your recommendation. You're the trusted advisor. You know how important it is. The reality is that most people we talk to haven't thought about the need to protect their income, or if they have, it was a fleeting moment. We need to make sure that we're out there talking about this. And Nick Murray goes on to say in his particular book, and I love to quote Nick, he says, a plan that is not protected against death or disability is not really a plan, but rather a bet. And no loving father or husband would risk a bet on his family's financial well-being. So when you think about that, when you're out there talking to people about the need for life insurance and disability insurance, if they don't have it, they're taking a bet. They're taking a bet that it won't happen to them. And is that really a comprehensive plan? But again, is that the whole concept with that Nick talks about is that he is a true believer in the need for a person to need to protect their income, and he talks about it and recommends it as part of every plan. So if you think about the last three things we just talked about is I'm going to make it part of every annual review for those clients you already have. Now what I'm going to do is every time I meet somebody for the first time, I'm going to bring it up. And then when that prospect turns into a client, I'm getting ready, for them to make that leap from a prospect to a client, I'm recommending the need to protect their income. Now what you're doing is you're making sure that you're talking to everybody that you meet about the importance of them protecting their income. The next step that you can take to sell more disability insurance in 2013 is to keep it simple. I'm a pretty simple person. Some people would say I'm simple-minded. And what I try to do when I'm talking to people is to either write my ideas or concepts on the back of a napkin or on a legal pad. One of the things that I've seen over the years is that, the quotes that we get from the carriers, sometimes they can be really confusing. They have what I call a lot of legalese in there to protect them, and people aren't familiar with the language the way we are. Worse yet, if an agent or planner or producer is talking about disability insurance and they're not getting the response that ideally like from the person sitting across the table from them, is they tend to drone on and they use the proposal as a crutch and they don't engage in a conversation. They tend to read or highlight the proposal. But what I really want people to do is be able to make sure that they have the conversation. My experience is that when you're talking to most people, is they really want to know 5 broad view things. Is they kind of want to know how the policy works, i.e., do I get paid whether I get hurt on the job or off the job? What happens if I go back to work part-time? In a broad view, not a technical definition of residual or proportionate disability. They want to know how much they're going to get every month. They want to know when the benefits are going to start, how long the benefits are going to last, and bottom line, how much is this stuff going to cost me? That's what the vast majority of people want. And let me give you an example. Remember, you're the trusted advisor. You're the professional. You're making the recommendation. A couple weeks ago, I was having my wife's car serviced. For the typical, when the light comes on, it says you have to have it serviced. Went in there, thought it was going to be an oil change and a lube, and the guy said, hey, look, we did the test, and the brakes are going bad. You should, replace. Our recommendation is that you replace the brake pad. Now, here's the questions that I did not ask him. I didn't say, really, can you tell me what brake pads you're going to recommend? What are the manufacturers that you're going to use? I didn't ask that question. I didn't say, well, let me ask you this. What's the process that you or your team is going to go through to take them off and put them back on? I didn't ask that. Here's what I knew. I wanted to make sure my family was in a safe car. I trusted the mechanic. My only question is, okay, how much is that going to cost? So what's really interesting is we ask, or your clients ask less questions of their mechanic about something that they asked you. And what we have to do is we have to get to the point that we're more of a trusted advisor than the mechanic. So let's keep it simple is what I really want to emphasize. Next step is I want you to look for people out there who currently have group LTD. And there's a lot of people out there who are covered by their employer with group LTD. Too often, planners and advisors, once they see that that's been covered, is they just go on to something else thinking, well, that's money I don't have to put toward a disability income policy. I'll use that premium and we'll buy more life insurance, or we'll put money in a certain investment. But the reality is that while group LTD is a great benefit, it's great that it's provided to you, there's certainly a gap. And what I tend to do is when I'm talking to somebody who has group LTD, I really talk about the good news and the bad news. I don't spend a whole bunch of time telling them, how my opinion on how group LTD compares to individual. There is no comparison, but there's no reason to debate because they already have the benefit. So what I basically do is I use the back of a napkin, and I just basically say, John, I want to talk to you today about 3 buckets. And right now, when you go to work, the bucket that you have is you receive 100% of your compensation when you go to work. Now, John, I know you pay taxes, and I know that you pay your insurance premiums, but the reality is you get compensated, and you're keeping that money, if you will. That's the good news. I mean, and then there's some more good news. Is right now your employer provides group LTD. They provide a plan if you become hurt or sick and can't come to work. The bad news is instead of having a 100% bucket, they're only going to give you 60% of what you're earning right now. Here's my question, John. What impact would it have on you and your family if you took a 40% pay cut? So out of role play for a second, my experience is that most families are living on 100% or more of 2 incomes. They can't take a 40% pay cut. Then what I go on to say is, John, I'd say here's what we can do. Is for a few dollars a month, what we're able to do is you can buy an individual policy on yourself. We layer that on your current group LTD plan, and now from a net basis, should you become hurt or sick, between those 2 policies, you're going to be at about 90% of where you were before you became hurt or sick. Obviously, we have 60% taxable plus a 20% non-taxable is going to get us pretty close to that 90% number. And then what we're able to do now is to show him graphically is, the buckets, it's almost going to be full. So what I don't want to do is get into a debate about whether group LTD is good or bad. What I want to be laser being focused on is, can he afford a 40% pay cut? Can she afford a 40% pay cut? Trust me on this one, people. There's huge opportunity to talk to people who currently have group LTD about the need to supplement their particular benefit. I believe that these potentials are only going to be greater with all the challenges that employers have today in providing employee benefits. Some of them are going to reduce their group LTD, so we need to be prepared. So if you're in the habit of already talking to people and you can put a rider on their individual supplemental plan that allows them to exercise a huge amount of individual coverage should the employer drop the group LTD, now you've really become a disability insurance expert. The next step is what I want to do is think about those clients that you have or possibly prospects who have health insurance. And I know many of you have heard this before, but it's becoming more important than ever with everything that's going on in terms of what people call, quote unquote, Obamacare. Now, I'm not going to make a political statement other than the fact that, the employer's requirement or need to or want to providing medical insurance to employees is certainly, it's heightened, the press is heightened. We're in a transition year. 2014 is going to be a very significant year, and we need to be talking to people about, to make sure that they have a 100% health insurance plan, not half a health insurance plan. And what I basically ask, what I ask a business owner who's providing health insurance to himself or herself and their employees, or when I'm talking to an employee of a company who's spending $100, $200, $250 a month in supplementing the cost what the employer is doing, I always ask them, why are you buying this? And the answer is always the same, because somebody in my family might get hurt or sick, to include me. Well, my question is, well, if it happens to you and you become hurt or sick, what happens to your income? And so what we really need to do is just take out the back of a napkin and write down, the fraction 1/2 and say, John, right now you have half of a health insurance plan. That health insurance plan is great because it pays the hospital, the physician, and the pharmacy, all the bills that they're due if you become hurt or sick. John, the problem is if you become hurt or sick, the one person that it doesn't pay is you. And what we need to do is we need to talk about the need to protect you in the event that you do become hurt or sick. I want you to get paid just as much, in fact, more so than I want the hospital, physician, and pharmacy to get paid. So it's a way to talk to those people out there who have health insurance at work and who possibly, you've never talked to them about protecting their income. It's a great way to talk to the business owner who's probably writing a very big check for himself or herself and his employees for medical insurance. The main reason he does it, is because somebody might get hurt or sick and he doesn't want to see, the bad things that could happen if they're not protected. Next thing that you need to be able to do in order to sell more disability insurance in 2013 is to be able to deal with the "it won't happen to me." It's what I call the Superman or the Superwoman syndrome. So every time somebody says, it ain't going to happen to me, I say one thing. Isn't it interesting that even Superman can become disabled? Many of you remember Christopher Reeve when he felt, he had a horse riding accident, and 12 months after that happened, his friends in Hollywood were holding fundraisers for him to help pay for his medical bills. And yet Christopher Reeve, when you think about it, was as healthy and wealthy as almost anyone you or I know. See, bad things happen to good people. We have to help them have contingencies in the event that it happens. So my conversation when I'm talking to somebody who says, it won't happen to me, is I always lead with my Superman story, and then I say, the problem with what you're saying, Dave, is that when you tell me it won't happen to you, here's the problem. You don't get a vote. You have zero control whether you can become hurt or sick. For those of you who are on the call who are like me, who are getting older, how many times have we had a friend, a coworker, an associate, a friend of a friend, who suffered a heart attack? And here's always the first comment. Gosh darn, he took such good care of himself. He was always working out, and he was a healthy eater, and then he has a heart attack. Go to the people that are in the hospitals that have been involved in an accident and ask them, when you woke up this morning, was it your intention to be in an accident? The reality is none of us can control whether we become hurt or sick. We like to think that we can. We think because we take care of ourselves and eat right and work out that makes a difference. Does it change it? Yeah, possibly, but the reality is we don't get a vote. Bad things happen to good people. So don't be afraid to challenge people when they say it won't happen to them. Okay, here's what I want you to think about. I don't want you to use statistics. I don't want you to say, well, the chances are, because that's a logical argument. And if you really take a look at statistics, the statistics say that more people don't become disabled than do become disabled. So somebody who's focused on that is going to say, well, why should I'm going to take the bet, as Nick Murray would say. But what you really have to do is you've got to get them emotionally involved. What would be the impact on your family if it did happen to you, given the fact that you have zero control? So my point is you have to feel confident and comfortable having the conversation with that person, that Superman or Superwoman that says that it won't happen to them. Boy, I tell you what, with income protection products, disability insurance, it seems like we're always having to deal with the price issue. Here's what I want you to be thinking about in 2013 to help you sell more disability insurance, is before you jump into price, is make sure you've done a great job of establishing the need to protect their income first. Help them understand the type of asset that they're protecting. When you take a look at that $50,000 income for that 40-year-old who's going to work to age 65 with 5% increases, and it's in excess of $2 million that he or she is going to make. You want them to be thinking, well, I can protect that $2,500,000 asset for $89 a month, as opposed to, well, I'm paying $89 a month for $3,000 a month benefit, or whatever it happens to be. is we have to let them know what they're protecting. And you know what's really amazing today, and again, I use the back of a napkin, I'll use a legal pad, and I'll just, you know, when I'm sitting down with Dave and I said, you know, Dave, something is really puzzling me, I got to ask you a question. You and I have talked about the need to protect your income. You know, you're 40 years old, you're making $50,000 a year. If you get just incremental raises of 5%, you know, throughout the rest of your working lifetime, is you're going to make over $2 million between now and age 65. And I'm asking you basically to spend $150 a month to protect that asset. And you keep resisting. You say, oh, it's too much, I can't find the money. Dude, here's what I'm really just flabbergasted me. How much again did you tell me you're paying for cable TV? Dave, what you're really telling me is it's more important that you're able to watch Homeland, you know, season 3, than it is to protect your income in the event that you become hurt or sick. Is that really what you want to tell your family if you do become hurt or sick, that you don't have any income coming in? But hey, we got Homeland. Problem is, if that were to happen, you'd have to get rid of that cable. So put it in help them understand how they're currently thinking. See, here's the problem, is most of them haven't had the conversation with a professional like yourself regarding the need to protect their income. And so we have to put it in terms that they can understand. Many times they can understand how much they're spending for cable TV as opposed to the need to protect their income. See, a lot of them think it's, boy, this is kind of like credit card insurance. It should cost $15, $20 a month. No, obviously it's a lot different, and the people on this call know that. And the last thing I think that you really need to do as we head into 2013 is to continue your professional development. You know, hats off to you for spending a few minutes today to get an idea or two that's going to help you with income protection products in 2013. So you're going to the Plus Group National Webinar like this. Your local Plus Group office typically has webinars or conference calls, you know, for their particular brokers. Make sure that you're tuning in to those. When your local Plus Group office has some lunch and learns, where it's a smaller setting, we can get a group of producers together to talk about disability insurance and income protection. And then, you know, last but not least, you know, make sure that that you're attending the DI days that many of the cities across the country have. And to add to the professional development, Tracy's going to send out an email with an offer for you, as I have something called the Income Protection Quick Start Program. It's 4 modules, 7 steps to unlimited referrals, 7 ways to initiate the income protection conversation, navigating your client through the 7 steps of underwriting, and 7 great sales ideas. And Tracy will send that in a follow-up email from this webinar. And normally this program sells for $199. We're going to make it available to all the Plus Group brokers for $99. If it's something you want to take advantage of, great. If it's something you don't need, then that's great too. And so what I'd like to do is just, as you can see, here are 13 things you can do in 2013 to help you sell more disability insurance. And Tracy, with that, I am going to open it up for a few questions.
Okay. If you have questions, as I mentioned, you need to go to your question pane and type them in, and we'll get them. I know a couple of people have asked me about if they missed part of the call. It is recorded, and it will be replayed. You actually will get a link to the actual question, the PowerPoint, and the audio as well. So, so that is one question people have had. I haven't seen any other questions. Again, if you have a question, you can type it in. Now, if you want to think about it and get back to us, obviously Chris did such a great job. Feel free to send me any additional questions, Tracy at plusgroupus.com, or feel free to contact your local Plus Group office. So it looks like that's it, Chris. Thank you. Obviously, you were so thorough. It was it covered everything. And I want to thank
Obviously, I stunned him.
You did. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And again, you will get a recording and a copy of the presentation in the next day or two. And if you have any issues with that, you can also go to our Plus Group website at www.plusgroupus.com. It should be on the website by the end of the week, or contact your local Plus Group office. And again, thank you, everybody, for attending today. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye now.